At number 10 spot, we have Alti the Sea Monster. In southeastern Georgia along the 137-mile long Altamaha River, some say a gigantic sea monster is lurking in the depths, with reports dating back all the way to the 1800s. Alti, or by its original name Altamaha, is a river sea monster that was first discovered by Captain Delano of the schooner Eagle. He described the creature being 7 feet long with a circumference the size of a barrel and a head resembling that of an alligator. Reports of the creature started to amass, with every description describing it as a 20 to 30 feet long sturgeon-like fish, but in my opinion this thing just looks like a distant relative to the Loch Ness Monster. Do you see it? Other reports claim that the creature was over 60 feet long as well. Over the years there are many sightings of Alti and they remain consistent in their descriptions. Then more recently a video of Jeff Warren shared an identified creature that could resemble Alti, but you guys be the judge of that one. At our number 9 spot, we have Winecoff Hotel. After its completion in 1912, it was renowned as being a fireproof building due to its steel construction. It is located in the heart of downtown Atlanta. It was grand, it was modern at the time, but for some reason the hotel only had one staircase, which turned out to be a huge fatal mistake later on. Then on December 7, 1946, a fire engulfed the entire hotel, which also happened to be the most deadliest hotel fire in US history, killing a total of 119 people. The fire started on the 3rd floor, which only meant that everyone from the 3rd to 15th floor had no way of escaping the building because of the one staircase. While some managed to jump out of their windows into the nets firemen were holding, the majority of people would be leaping to their death. The hotel has since been rebuilt, but much of the charred past remains inside of the building. At a number 8 spot, we have the weeping statue of Gracie. This statue is located in Bonaventure Cemetery, which was established all the way back in 1846. Although the cemetery contains many different beautiful statues, the statue of Gracie is the one that sticks out to almost all visitors. Gracie Watson was born in 1882 and grew up in the Pulaski House Hotel that her parents WJ and Frances Watson ran. Unfortunately, when Gracie was only 7 years old, she contracted pneumonia and passed away on April 22nd, 1889. So in honor of her untimely death, a beautiful statue of her sitting was built. Nowadays, many guests leave offerings and gifts such as toys, flowers, and knives gifts for her, but when people try to steal these gifts, she will cry tears of blood. And some have even said her statue comes alive at night, with visitors seeing an empty seat on her statue. At our number 7 spot, we have the Georgia Guidestones. This is considered as America's version of Stonehenge, and you can probably see why. Not only are they both large creations with stone, but they are both shrouded in complete mystery and speculation. The Georgia Guidestones were erected in the 1980s by an anonymous man under the name of Robert C. Christian. This astronomically aligned monument is made up of a solid granite, with each of the slabs weighing around 20 tons. Written on these stones are 8 different languages, which include Arabic, Chinese, English, Hebrew, Hindi, Russian, Spanish, and Swahili. The reason it was built in the first place was to prepare humanity for a plan just in case of an upcoming apocalypse. One of the things that was noted on this was to keep humanity under the population of 500 million people, to keep us in perpetual balance with nature. With the population of 7 billion, I can see why this is kind of scary to look at. You can pause the video now if you want to see the whole entire list. However, some believe this monument has ties with the Illuminati or the New World Order, and on July 6th of the same year, the monument was completely destroyed by an explosion by an unknown individual, who could also be tied to these organizations, who knows. At number 6 spot, we have Patriots Inn. This hotel in Augusta, Georgia was built all the way back in 1816, starting off as a simple 2-story home. As the time went on, the building underwent new expansions and eventually was able to house enough people to become a hotel. The haunting story of the hotel was about a lady named Emily. She was extremely excited for a wedding and was awaiting her husband, who was arriving at the inn by horseback. Except when a knock came on her door, it wasn't her husband, but the news that he was mistaken for a soldier charged with treason and was shot to death on the spot. Her hopes of getting married and having a happy life ended immediately. She would wear her wedding gown for months and would eventually pass away brokenhearted. Now guests claim that she is still waiting for her fiance at the hotel. They report seeing her walk up and down the staircase and pacing through the hallways in her own wedding gown. Right in the hump of our list, we have the Crybaby Bridge. I've done a Crybaby Bridge in my past videos, but I'm pretty sure there's one in every single state. Have a bridge and have a crying baby and boom, Crybaby Bridge. This bridge in Columbus, Georgia was created back in the 1800s. At the time, a poor farmer family in the area was expecting their 5th child. Knowing they couldn't afford to care for another child, the family arranged for the doctor to dispose of the baby right after birth. Now here is where it gets kind of dark. Instead of finding a humane way to deal with the baby, the doctor had more malicious intents, and he took the baby to this bridge and dropped it into the water below. Now that's the story, but people say if you drive to this bridge on a cloudless night with a full moon, and if you sprinkle baby powder on your car, you'll be able to hear the baby crying crying below the bridge, and some say that you can see baby footprints in the baby powder that you put. At number 4 spot, we have the Concord Bridge. This rooftop bridge is located in the town of Smyrna. It was built in 1872, and since then some haunted deaths occurred in, outside, under, and beside this bridge. Nowhere is safe. It's said that the waterheads haunt the forest and below the bridge. They are the children who were used for human experimentation and left to pass away by this bridge. Many other children were taken here only to meet their end as well. Now it's said that if you park on the bridge, turn off your car lights, and leave a Snickers bar on your car, you'll hear quiet footsteps approaching your car, and soon after the Snicker bars will be removed from the car. All the way at a number 3 spot, we have the Statue of Karine Lon. Aside from the weeping statue of Gracie, the Bonaventure Cemetery also has the famous statue of Karine Elliott Lawton. She was the daughter of the well-to-do brigade general in the Civil War, Alexander Robert Lawton. Legend goes that she wanted to marry someone who was in a lower social class, so because of this the father denied it and forced her to marry one of the most wealthiest men in all of Savannah. When she met him, she told the father she couldn't do it, but the wedding was still forced. On the day of the wedding, she was angry and heartbroken and took herself to the banks of the river and proceeded to drown herself. The odd thing about her statue is that it's facing away from her family's tomb, which many people say is a way to show that she went against her family's will even after death. Many paranormal investigators have attempted to speak to Karine over the years with some compelling evidence, so go search it up on YouTube if you want. At our number 2 spot, we have Lake Lanier. Couldn't mention Georgia without Lake Lanier because most of the people in the state know everything there needs to know about this infamous lake and the town that surrounds it. Some people come to this lake mostly to have a good time, but others in Georgia choose to stay far away from this body of water because this is where many drownings and boat accidents occur. And since its creation back in 1956, the lake has claimed the lives of over 700 people, which just makes this lake a cemetery in my opinion. Many blame the ancestral ghosts in the area. This is because many forget that the town around the lake was named Oscarville, which was home to over 1,000 African Americans who wanted to escape racial inequality. However, in 1912, a young white woman named May Crow was found dead in the woods, and many blamed it on these 2 young black men. This caused an enraged mob to drive the whole black community out of the town, with houses burning down and some people passing away. Now this could explain all the restless ghosts in the area. This was a terrible event in US history, and it's no surprise this place is haunted. At number 1 spot, we have the old governor's mansion. Located in Milledgeville, this estate was built in 1840 after a fire burned down the original Capitol building in 1931. And more famously, the President of the Confederate States of America, Jefferson Davis, was laid to state there, which is the tradition in which the body of a deceased official is placed in a state building. Now over the years, visitors report smelling burnt cigars, keys jingling when no one's around, broken glass, a woman's screams, and books falling from the 3rd floor. When paranormal investigators checked out the place, they claimed the most activity was in the mansion's library, which is the same place where many guests asked the workers if something happened in the library in the past, because when they walked through it, they claimed to sense a presence watching them. At a number 10 spot, we have the Night Marchers. According to Hawaiian lore, the Night Marchers were an ancient Hawaiian warriors in their past life, but their spirits march the island carrying torches now. But don't worry about hiding from them, because you'll definitely hear them well before you see them, as they play a distinctly loud drum while they march. They're believed to be stuck on the island for many different reasons. Some of the claims are they are looking to reclaim rightful territory or avenge a battle they had previously lost. These spirits are not entirely evil, but they do demand respect. For example, if you are unfortunate enough to cross paths with them, try your best not to interrupt. And I'll stress you not to look into their eyes, as you will meet your doom from even one glance from these warriors. Since they are ghosts, nothing can stop them from their path, not even buildings. So when you see them, do exactly this. Or another option is to lie down on the floor, but wouldn't you think that walking away is a better option? No? Anyone? At our number 9 spot, we have Morgan's Corner. This one takes place in the island of Oahu and is one of the most grisly murders on this list. Morgan's Corner got its name from a doctor who happened to live at this particular bend of the road. Then in 1948, it claimed that a couple of prisoners escaped the local prison and broke into a house looking for any sort of supplies. They broke into the home of 68-year-old Therese Wilder, who was below the home of Dr. James Morgan. They gagged her and later took her life by means of suffocation. Even though both of these criminals were caught and sent to jail, many say her screams for help can still be heard to this day. At our number 8 spot, we have Pelle, or the goddess of volcanoes, or she goes by another name called the woman who devours land, but I think that's a little bit too aggressive. It's said in Hawaii that every time a volcano erupts, it resembles Pelle's longing to be with her true love. Her story varies, but the most popular rendition talks about a girl born in Tahiti who was sent away from her father because of her difficult temper and seducing her sister's husband. After leaving, she would encounter her sister once again, who took her life out of pure rage. This is when Pelle became a full-fledged god before finding her home on a Hawaii island. Now it's said that if you remove the lava rocks on her island home, you will suffer years and years of bad luck and misfortune. And to this day, thousands of lava rocks are sent back to Hawaii due to people experiencing said bad luck. At number 7 spot, we have the Green Lady of Wahiawa. According to Hawaiian lore, a lady and her child would go to this botanical gardens often. Instead of taking their usual route on the bridge to go home, they decided to take the gulch because she feared of her children being struck by a car, since there was a fair amount of cars on the road at the time. When they took the gulch at night, the complex terrain separated the two, and the woman would end up losing her daughter. She looked everywhere in the ravine, but as nothing popped up, she went to the townsfolk for assistance, but no one wanted to help as it was very late at night. As she went back to look down once again, she ended up going missing as well. Now it's believed that she still roams the gulch covered in moss and vines with a distinct decaying smell, which is the reason why she is considered the Green Lady. She supposedly snatches children she finds in the area to fill the void she had from losing her daughter. And she's also spotted at the local elementary school acting as a mother picking up her own child. At a number 6 spot, we have the Kiana Cave. The Kiana Cave is located at the base of a cliff along the Farrington Highway of Oahu. The cave formed over 150,000 years ago. According to Hawaiian legend, Kiana Cave is home to the underground shark god Nanaue, the son of Komahoali, or the king of sharks, the most sacred brother of the fire goddess Pelle. Nanaue was born with a mouth on his back and his mother never fed him meat, but when he was 7 he accidentally ate one and slowly would become this shark-like humanoid with razor-sharp teeth and gills. He had an appetite for human flesh after that and would use his cave as a lair until one of the day a group of villagers came down and hunted him down for good. Now it's said that if you see an elderly Hawaiian man cooking meat near a cave, it's actually the spirit of Nanaue. In the hump of our list we have the faceless ghost of Wale Drive-In Theater. Supposedly at the Wale Drive-In Theater, there is a faceless ghost of a woman who stands near the lady's bathroom combing her hair. When you get too close to her, she will toss her hair to the side to reveal her perfectly featureless face as smooth as polished stone. The drive-in is supposedly haunted by these ghosts because it was built to an old cemetery in Kahala, which has since been torn down and transformed into commercial and residential buildings. Reports of the Faceless Woman began on May 19, 1959, when the person who first spotted her was hospitalized after a mental breakdown. This would become big in local news and many would come to the theater in hopes to experience this tragedy. After, many women would be found unconscious on the restroom floor who were said to be approached by the Faceless Woman. At our number 4 spot were the Menehune. These Hawaiian mythical beings are said to be located deep within the forest of the island. These 3 foot tall beings are said to be experts at building, where legends say that they would build temples, fish ponds, roads, and even homes for the Hawaiians. According to lore, if you interrupt them when they are working, they will vanish out of thin air, but in some rare cases they come back to you with only negative intentions. A story goes that a group of teens went on a beach to have a bonfire. When they arrived, they noticed an odd looking shrine, but as they focused more on it, they noticed these little faces and shadows of little people in the forest behind it. Scared by this, the teens decided to find offerings to give to the shrine. One teen came out of the forest with an apple, running, after a group of Menehune started to circle him. All the teens managed to escape, but this incident remains a reminder not to mess with these beings. All the way at a number 3 spot, we have the Theilani Palace. From scary sounds to unexplained apparitions, Theilani Palace reigns high with paranormal activity. Built in 1882, the meticulously restored palace was once home to Hawaii's last ruling royalty, King Kalakaua, and his sister Queen Lilikuali. She was imprisoned in the palace within her bedroom for 8 months following the overthrow of the Hawaiian monarchy. Although the queen physically passed away in 1917, it's believed that her spirit, along with a few others, are still roaming the halls of the royal home. Visitors on tours and security guards on duty have reported hearing footsteps, smelling the scent of burning cigars, and seeing the silhouette of a woman standing in the window of what was once the queen's bedroom. At number 2 spot, we have the Daniel K. Inouye International Airport. This international airport, located in Honolulu, is considered one of the most haunted airports in all of America, and for good reason. The airport is said to be haunted by the Lady in Waiting, who is a blonde girl who wears a white dress and appears in areas where people aren't allowed. The story goes that a woman fell for a man who pledged to marry her, but at a random turn of events, he took back his promise and vanished out of thin air. After she suspected the man left on a flight, she went to that airport and took her own life in one of the bathrooms. Now it's said that her spirit still remains in the airport, but is more prevalent in the bathrooms, with reports of her slamming the toilet seats and tugging on people's clothes. At the airport is said another ghost who is known for choking guests. It's said that this ghost sits on the chest of others and gives them the sensation of choking. Guess I'm taking a boat on my next Hawaii trip. At a number 1 spot, we have the ghost of Pearl Harbor. The Pearl Harbor incident was known as the reason for America's entry into World War II. This happened on December 7, 1941, when the Japanese led an attack to destroy as many military and civilian vessels in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. This attack caused the casualties of around 2,400 US personnel, including 68 civilians, and damaged or destroyed 19 US Navy ships, including 8 battleships. It's said that the spirits of those who passed still remain on Pearl Harbor to this day. One of the ghosts that can be spotted on the grounds is the ghost of a man named Charlie. When heavy doors begin to swing back and forth, or lights being flickered on and off, everyone who works there just says, quote, "That's just Charlie," as if it was some casual thing or something. Don't know about you, but I would expect everyone who passed away from this attack to become malevolent ghosts in the future, but I guess this one just got tired of it all. As people approach the shrine built to commemorate the event, many claim to feel the instant feeling of sadness and a pain feeling.
Starting out this countdown at number 10, Spirit Lake origins. Spirit Lake's name is said to be no mystery to those who live in Idaho. The story goes that years ago, a young Native American woman began a relationship with a brave man from a rival tribe. Unable to wed but determined to preserve their doomed love, the two tied their wrists together in symbolic marriage and jumped from a cliff into the lake where others tend to go to take their lives. It's said that on the moonlit nights you can see their shadowy spirits drifting across the lake in a phantom canoe, while mournful sounds fill the air as the Indian lovers seek release from their watery grave. Now here at number 9, Coyote and the Seven Devils. The Seven Devils form a portion of the Idaho-Oregon border, as well as line the most treasured river canyon called Hell's Canyon. The Nez Perce in particular had origin stories for nearly every feature of Idaho's diverse landscape, and the story of the Seven Devils is a unique one. Many years ago, there were 7 child-eating giant brothers who lived on the horizon. The people were terrified of these giants. They sent word to Coyote to help them defeat the giants and save their children. Coyote knew he couldn't battle 7 giants at once, so he dug massive holes in the earth and filled them with boiling liquid. As the giants were traveling east to snatch more children, they tripped into the holes and were trapped. Coyote was then able to transform the giants into stone, and he opened up a canyon at their feet to keep them from ever reaching the villages again. Coming in at number 8, Idaho doesn't exist. According to dozens of web pages which have genuinely called into question the very existence of Idaho as a physical location, the gem state simply doesn't exist, people say. People say it's down to 3 premises. Do you know anybody from Idaho? Have you ever been to Idaho? Do you know anyone who's ever been to Idaho? For most, the answer is no. Therefore, that's why people say Idaho doesn't exist. In fact, the general consensus is that Idaho was put on the map because cartographers needed a barrier to separate Utah from Canada and protect Montana from Washington, or vice versa. One explanation is that Idaho is a government-operated mind control vacuum. Another theory is that Idaho exists, but only as a state of mind. The whole debacle stirs up an abundance of very real philosophical arguments, but according to conspiracy logic, if you feel like you're living in Idaho right now, odds are it is simply the result of other conspiracies at work. Now personally, I don't believe this one, but there are some people who really full-heartedly believe it. Here at number 7, Charlie. The legend of Charlie the lake monster was first recorded in the early 1920s when railroad workers in McCall saw something unexplainable. In McCall, locals will tell you the tale of this creature. Charlie has been known as Slimy Slim and the Twilight Dragon of Payette Lake. Over the years, this serpent-like creature with a dragon head has made many appearances. Most think it's a log before it rises up to reveal its head. The last documented sighting came in 2002, but in 1954, the Payette Lake Star newspaper held a contest challenging readers to come up with a name for this elusive creature. The winner was Leigh Isle Henneferturi of Springfield, who came up with the name Charlie. Charlie continued to be spotted over the years, but it has been seen less and less frequently. It is reported to be between 10 and 50 feet long, brownish green, having a shell, and travels in serpent-like waves, rising and falling out of the water. But this gentle beast garners nothing but love from locals, who can't seem to recall an incident when Charlie attacked any of the lakeside city's residents. Very much like the Loch Ness Monster, except the Loch Ness Monster doesn't get as much love, and it seems like every place has its own version of a monster in a body of water. Number 6, Idaho is purposely drugging its residences. In 1947, it's said that Lewiston began adding fluoride into its water, as did the vast majority of United States cities, a practice which still exists today. Many suspected, however, that the addition of fluoride, which is approved as an easy way to cut down on widespread tooth decay, was in fact a large-scale attempt to underhandedly medicate Idaho's citizens, as well as a means of covering up the drastic lack of dental care provided for the state's working people who were poor. The dramatic decrease in childhood cavity levels recorded by 1950 supported the practice as a whole, but to this day, fluoride is still majorly opposed for a variety of reasons, including links to cancer and bone loss. Halfway at number 5, Lake Pent. This deep ocean-like lake in northern Idaho is said to be the perfect place for a monstrous beast to reside. It is said to be large, gray, and prehistoric in shape and size. Locals claim he is an unknown remnant of the Jurassic era that has managed to survive extinction, against all odds. Up until this point, the creature has remained a peaceful part of local lore, although many say that sightings of the sea creature were merely glimpses of Naval Training Station's top-secret submarine and technological testing. Coming in at number 4, Civic Theater. Before this building housed the Lewiston Civic Theater, it was a Methodist church built in 1904. In 1972, it became a theater, and in 1982, 2 women and 1 man all mysteriously disappeared from the theater on the same night. Both women were found unfortunately deceased off of the property 2 years later, suspected to be victims of a homicide. The man, however, was never found, and his mystery remains unsolved. Whether or not these 3 people haunt the building, there have been numerous sightings of other ghosts in the theater. Actors and theatergoers have seen apparitions of a red-haired man, a spectacled presence in the mailroom, and an elderly gentleman in the doorway. A ghost of a director has been seen in the balcony, and apparently a bride weaves herself through the seats. Here at number 3, Massacre rocks water babies. This one comes from Pocatello, where you can hear the crying of babies late at night if you sit by the river alone in the dark. Many believe that it's the sound of babies that mothers were forced to take the lives of during a famine rather than watch them starve till they passed away. Some think that these babies grew gills and learned to survive. Depending on the story you hear, a water baby is said to be a spirit or monster traditionally seen as a Native American bred urban legend of small childlike creatures living in the waters of reservations around the western United States. It is rumored that they are tricksters whose main goal is to take the lives of others. Coming in at number 2, the Murder House. The Murder House of Boys was the site of the vicious passing of Preston Murr more than 30 years ago. After an argument broke out in the basement of the house between Murr and 2 men, Murr was shot and then hacked into pieces that were dumped 100 miles away from Brownlee Reservoir. His body parts surfaced and led investigators back to the house, which is allegedly still haunted today. Many former residents and visitors of the house have said that the basement has a very creepy feeling. Even footsteps from an invisible person have been heard. There are also legends about the house that say bloodstains appear and then disappear, and a woman in old-fashioned clothing has been seen looking out the window.
Now the rumor is that this 21-year-old man will forever haunt this home, and even non-believers believe it's created an urban legend.
Living there, I really don't feel that I was never afraid or felt that it was haunted, but there are so many stories. I mean, everybody's convinced that it is.
Now here at our number 1 spot, the Phantom Jogger of Canyon Hill. At Cadwell's Canyon Hill Cemetery, it's said that the ghosts don't like when you stare at their graves late at night. According to the legend, if you park between the 2 trees across the street from the entrance at midnight, you will see something quite terrifying. Make sure to turn your lights off though, so you can see the legless jogger when she knocks on your window. After you've completely freaked out and almost totally lost your mind, she leaves just as quickly as she came. Someone has said that they parked in this spot to investigate, but they did it at noon, so it wasn't very dark. They said they didn't see any ghosts, but that it was still very creepy.
At a number 10 spot, we have the 7 Gates to Hell. In the rural town of Collinsville, Illinois, they have what is known as the 7 Gates to Hell, which follows this twisting and turning back roads. The gates were formed by these old trestle bridges built back in the early 1800s, passing over the roadways that allowed trains to go over the area. Many stories, none of them good, come from these gates, ranging from satanic rituals to homicides to even paranormal activity. Legend says that there are 2 ways to experience the gates to hell. The first is that you might drive through each of the gates from order 1 through 7. If you want to open the portal to hell, you need to pass through the 7th gate at midnight, where you will be met with hellhounds that will drag you into hell. The second way is that you drive in reverse through the gates, starting from 7 all the way down to number 1. It's said that if you do this and look at your rear view mirror, you will see a a tear in reality and see hell firsthand. At a number 9 spot, we have Hull House Devil Baby. In 1889, the Hull House was founded by Jane Addams and Ellen Gates Starr. This is also the first settlement house in all of Chicago. It didn't take long until many people showed up to the house and praised it to a point where people began naming it the best settlement house in all of America. The structure stands to this day, but this house has a lesser known story of a devil baby. In 1913, one night a baby was left abandoned at the steps of the Hull House. It was possibly a severely deformed baby. Jane Addams would take the baby in as she basically had no other choice, but in the following weeks mass hysteria would consume the house fairly quickly. This was because word broke out of this baby looking as if it was devil spawn. People came in the thousands and wanted to catch a glimpse of this devil baby. Unfortunately, shortly after, the baby would pass away, but it is said that if you look up at the window where the baby had passed away, you can see the face of a devil looking back right at you. At number 8 spot, we have Homy the Clown. In Illinois during the 1990s, there was a clown going by the name of Homy who was spotted going through the streets to lure children into a sketchy van. If you've seen the free candy van meme, this is the unofficial origin story. His name originated from a beloved clown character in the early 90s sketch comedy show named In Living Color, who would be this ex-convict who would carry a sock for rebellious children. Except for this clown, children would not get a sock for punishment, but would get something way more sinister, way more brutal. Eventually the police would be involved, but would be very skeptical about a killer kidnapping clown. Homy the Clown would eventually fizzle out of existence and may still be out there in his van awaiting unsuspecting children. At number 7 spot, we have the Murfreesboro Mud Monster. In 1973, a young couple went on a romantic late night drive in the town of Murfreesboro, Illinois. Only after a few minutes of driving, they decided to park near a river when all of a sudden, they heard a shrieking sound that could only be described as an eagle shrieking into a microphone. They soon scanned the area and heard yet another loud screech. They looked in the direction where it came from and noticed a bush that was shaking. They then saw the Mud Monster and described it as a 7-foot tall being, thick fur, and a footprint closely resembled that of Bigfoot. This monster soon kept terrorizing the town for weeks, then out of the blue, it disappeared, leaving the town in peace all of a sudden. At number 6 spot, we have the Moon Point Cemetery. Just south of Streator in Livingston County lies this old graveyard named Moon Point Cemetery. It got its name from Jacob Moon, who, along with his daughter and 3 sons, was the first to settle that area. After years of war and other fatal tragedies, this place has been haunted by the ghosts of its past. One of these ghosts include the ghost of a hatchet lady. Legend has it she often visited the cemetery to watch over her son's grave after he passed away during the Civil War. Eventually she would pass away too, but immediately after, her ghost took up the vigil wielding a hatchet. She has been heard yelling or even whispering at visitors to get out of the area, and on a full moon night she is seen throwing hatchets around the cemetery. Other ghosts stuck inside the cemetery include a ghost boy, strange dancing orbs, and the sound of a sarcophagus lid opening. It doesn't help the fact that vandalism is happening at the cemetery, so it's basically confirmed that the spirits are unrested within this place. In the hump of our list, we have ghost elephants. On June 22nd, 1918, a train was heading to Indiana for a performance before they were struck head on with another train that ignored all sorts of warnings. The crash alone was bad, causing many lives to be lost, but it wasn't until a fire broke out as a result of the crash where many more lives were claimed. An estimated total of 85 circus performers lost their lives, making it the second worst circus accident in all of history. The bodies were buried at a nearby cemetery named Woodland Cemetery, and while many bodies were unrecognizable due to the charred remains, they were buried in mass graves with unknown man or unknown woman marked on the graves. At night, visitors of the cemetery claimed to see the apparition of an elephant and the sounds of it before it disappears into the darkness. I mean, just imagine strolling through the cemetery and you encounter a 4-ton, 11 feet tall beast right in front of you. That's probably the most terrifying sight of all. At number 4 spot, we have Lover's Leap. Illinois' Pierre Marquette State Park spans an area of about 8,000 acres, and this includes a cliff area known as Lover's Leap. This cliff overlooks both the Illinois and Mississippi rivers, and if I didn't tell you about this next story, I bet you would have wanted to catch the view, but let me change your mind real quick. The legend goes that an Indian brave and a maiden of another tribe fell in love, despite the fact that both of their tribes absolutely despise one another. The tribes have set up so many walls that they even use starvation as a tactic of war. Because of this divide, the two were forced to stay away from one another, and the chiefs of each tribe forbid them from marrying one another. No exceptions. So just like Romeo and Juliet, the two met up one last time at Lover's Leap and proceeded to jump off the cliff together because they thought if we can't have each other, then no one can. Now couples who go near this cliff have the sudden urge to jump off with their partner even if they come to the area completely happy with no personal issues. All the way at a number 3 spot we have the Thunderbirds. This legend all started back in 1977 when Ruth Lowe from Lansdale, Illinois was drawn outside by a loud noise coming from her backyard. When she looked, she noticed the area was in complete darkness with something large approaching the ground. Before she could understand what's happening, a massive bird lifted her child a full 2 feet above the ground before letting go and vanishing out of the air. According to Ruth, it was black in color with a white ring around its neck, with wings and a tail that were at least 10 feet long. Basically the Mothman, but on steroids. At a number 2 spot, we have the ghost lady of Kennedy Hill Road. In 1980 on Kennedy Hill Road, people reported seeing a woman in a dress walking around before vanishing into the dark. There are numerous sightings of this person or ghost, but no one could really explain what they saw. Some thought it was the ghost of a woman buried nearby, or some had assumed it was a mentally disabled person who had run away from their home. As more sightings were reported, more details were being released on what the ghost was. One report claimed that the ghost lady was actually a man wearing his late girlfriend's dress, but after this report was made, the ghost was never seen or heard from again. Except now she is said to be back, with new reports claiming that the ghost is still walking in the road, with descriptions of her being very tall, slender, and having long blonde hair. At a number 1 spot with the Bachelor's Grove Cemetery. This one could very well be the most haunted cemetery in America, with hundreds of reports of paranormal experience, in which many of them are well documented and very credible. Just 25 miles outside of Chicago lies the Bachelor Grove's Woods, and around 1840 the cemetery was only a 1-acre plot of land with a total of 82 graves. Eventually the place was abandoned due to the limited space, but this is when it turned from an innocent graveyard to one of the most terrifying ones. After years of neglect and vandalism, the cemetery started to have more and more hauntings and paranormal activity. When visitors access the cemetery from coming through the woods, they often report seeing the apparition of a dog, a horse, a lady in white, and balls of glowing lights. The most famous grave in this cemetery is marked as the infant daughter. It is usually surrounded by these flowers and toys from those who leave their condolences on the young person. Remember that lady in white I just mentioned? Well, it said that she is the mother of this infant, and then she roams the cemetery still looking for her daughter, as no name ever presented itself on the tombstone. At number 10 spot, we have the 100-Step Cemetery. The 100-Step Cemetery is located in a town of Brazil, India. Remember, I said town, not the country. The cemetery gets its name from the long infamous staircase that lies right in the middle of it, and there are 2 versions of the legend about the staircase. One legend says that once you reach the 100th step, or the last step, the ghost of a past cemetery caretaker will appear right in front of you and whisper out the time and way you will pass away. However, once he says this, you must climb back down all the stairs, and if you don't count back to 100, the caretaker will take your life on the spot. The other version of this story is that when you go back down these steps, if the number you count is different than the number you walked up with, then your prophecy is false. Much of the stairs are overgrown with vegetation, so counting the stairs is much harder. And more recently, the cemetery even tried to tear out parts of the stairs. Are they trying to physically remove the urban legend from this place? I mean, a free fortune teller? Who wouldn't want that? At a number 9 spot, we have the Green Clawed Beast. Supposedly lurking in the Ohio River near Evansville, Indiana, is a green-clawed beast that has haunted residents since the 1950s. In the hot summer of 1955, Naomi Johnson, her 3 children, and their family friend Luis Lambo went for a swim in the Ohio River. When Naomi was about 15 feet away from the shore, that's when she began to arch her back, when all of a sudden something wrapped around her knee, pulling her down as well. She immediately started to swim back to shore, kicking whatever hit her in the process. After she was swimming away, she felt her leg get grabbed again from behind, but she was able to grab an inner tube that they were using as a float to get away. The odd thing about this incident was that when she was getting treated for her scratches, the authorities recalled a strange bluish green stain that was on her lower leg at the time. Then, a short time after this, a man arrived at Naomi's door with physical evidence showing that he was an Air Force colonel, and he told her to never speak of the incident ever again. Ever since, there has been no sighting of this supposed creature, so much of it is unknown if this creature really truly exists today. But what do you guys think grabbed Naomi in the water that day? At number 8 spot, we have Diana of the Dunes. It's said that if you walk along the shores of Indiana Dunes National Park, you may see a pale naked woman swimming or running around near the waters of Lake Michigan. However, don't be deceived, because what you may be seeing is a ghost of a lady who used to do the same thing back in the early 1900s. The real woman's name was Alice Mabel Gray, and she lived as a hermit in a driftwood shack along the shore. However, she wasn't always like this. She earned a bachelor degree from the University of Chicago in 1903, but as years went by, she found that the city life and the working life made her more depressed each and every single day. She then decided to escape everything, and ever since she's been known as the Diana of the Dunes. Her spirit is not so friendly. It's said that if you get too close to the naked woman, then she may drag you down into the water with her. This is because in her years alive, Alice ended up falling in love with an abusive man named Paul Wilson. So when Alice gave birth to her second child, she ended up passing away from uremic poisoning, which was due to repeated punches to her abdomen. Ever since this incident, her spirit has been nothing but aggressive to young men. At our number 7 spot, we have Devil's Road. The name Devil's Road should give you all the warnings you need before you decide to take a drive down this road. In Jasper, Indiana, there was a school bus full of kids that stalled in the middle of these train tracks. The moment the bus stalled, the kids couldn't help but notice a train coming straight towards them. However, before they could even think to escape, the train ended up smashing right through the bus, with all the children passing away immediately, and the only survivor being the bus driver. However, when the bus driver noticed there was no survivors, he was so distraught, he decided to take his own life using a firearm. Nowadays, people claim that the spirits of the children remain on the road. Some have tested their luck by stopping their car on the train tracks and dropping it into neutral, and this is when you supposedly begin to see children walking towards you, or if some have said their car completely stalls on this railroad. Regardless, I wouldn't recommend doing this because you're just putting yourself in that same position the school bus was in that day. At our number 6 spot, with the Culbertson Mansion. Stored away in New Albany, Indiana is the Culbertson Mansion. Out of all the mansions I've mentioned, this has to be one of the most gruesome yet unfortunate histories attached to it. In the 1800s, this mansion was struck by lightning, and everyone who was inside of the home passed away from the fire that engulfed the entire place. Then in 1933, the mansion was sold to a local named Dr. Webb and his family. But after a year of living in here, they were all found dead. All their bodies showed evidence of being tortured, yet the case never ended up getting solved. As well, later on, it was found that the doctor kept some of his patients locked in the basement. Nowadays, the house offers many haunted tours, but staff members still report things they can't explain, and more specifically, in the basement where all the horrific events took place. In the Hubver list, we have the Edna Collins Bridge. Out of all the bridges in Putnam County, the Edna Collins Covered Bridge is the most recent. However, despite not being the oldest, it's still believed to be the most haunted out of all of them. Locals claim that the bridge is haunted by a mother and child duo. Legend goes that a little girl by the name of Edna Collins lived in the area nearby and would occasionally swim in Little Walnut Creek, which is the creek the bridge now resides over. Her parents had a tradition of dropping her off on their way to town, and when they returned, they would honk 3 times to let her know that it was time to go. However, one day after they honked 3 times, Edna was nowhere to be found. Instead, they searched the nearby creek and they found that she had drowned in it. It's said that shortly after, the mother took her own life and hung herself on the trees where the bridge is located today. And ever since, this bridge has been haunted by this mother and child duo. At number 4 spot, we have the Whitcomb's Library. Before his death in 1852, former Indiana Governor James Whitcomb donated his entire library to Ashbury University, which is now known as DePauw University. This library was filled with all the books that he read in his entire lifetime. This collection included one book named The Poems of Ossian, the Son of Fingal, which was locked away in a specific section of the library which was closed to the public. One small boy grew more and more curious about the book, and then one day in the 1800s, he decided to sneak into the library and steal the book for himself. However, after he finished the book, he woke up to a spectral finger pointing at him, asking who stole the book. Ever since, many believed it was Whitcomb's ghost protecting his books, and no one has ever tried to steal a book since. To this day, there are still occasional sightings of his ghost, but as long as no one is stealing his books, then he shouldn't do anything aggressive. At our number 3 spot, we have St. Mary of the Woods College. St. Mary of the Woods College was opened in 1840 and is the oldest Catholic college in the entire state. The Leffer and Foley buildings on the campus have had many reports of something supernatural lurking inside of them. Some have said they have been grabbed by invisible forces, and there are stories of an exorcism done in the Foley building. However, the most notorious spirit found at the college is the Faceless Nun. Legend goes that the Faceless Nun is the ghost of a sister nun who used to teach in the art department at the campus. It was there where she began a self-portrait but passed away from an illness just before finishing it. However, the section has been destroyed and now it seems that her spirit is found everywhere on campus. When people spot her, they are usually stunned and even freeze in terror. At a number 2 spot with the Pug Waji. The Pug Waji is a 2 to 3 feet tall creature that lurks in swamps and dense forests. He physically resembles a troll or sort of a goblin, and one of their active spots happens to be in Mound State Park in Anderson, Indiana. Author and archaeologist Paul Startzman claimed to have encountered one of these creatures back in 1927. He claimed to be walking alone in the park when he noticed a little man half his size with abnormally large ears, gray skin, and a mushroom cut. They are not known to attack humans, but are instead known to be great deceivers and tricksters. However, other iterations of the creatures say the complete opposite, telling how these creatures are indeed bloodthirsty and need small gifts and sacrifices in order to appease them. One telltale sign you'll know that they're near is from their high-pitched gremlin-like laugh. So you can only imagine the feeling you'd get walking here at night when all of a sudden you hear the Green Goblin. At a number 1 spot with the Zion United Church of Christ Cemetery. Potentially the most haunted cemetery in the entire state of Indiana, the Zion United Church of Christ Cemetery is supposedly a hotspot for anyone looking to see something supernatural. Located in Poland, Indiana, this cemetery has gravestones dating back all the way since the 1840s, and the amount of reports coming from this cemetery is enough to make anyone believe there's something sinister inside of it. The ghost that many locals see is the one that walks outside of the cemetery, warning people not to enter the cursed grounds. Some have said the ghost tells them to turn back, and those who have been unfortunate enough to be inside of the cemetery report unexplained sounds and lights and the constant feeling that they're being watched the entire time they're there.